right, and welcome to the Courtenay Turner podcast. I'm your host, Courtenay, and I'm super passionate about moving and thinking. On this show, we are going to dive into all things health, fitness, personal development, lifestyle, and political sociocultural. I've always been fascinated by people, and I love learning from the experiences and stories of others. This has been a treat for me, and I hope this is enjoyable and useful for you. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or any way that I can make this a better experience for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Hello, welcome to the Courtenay Turner podcast. I'm here today with Jason Preston, who is running for Congress in Utah's 3rd District. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
So, excited to have you here, and I want to hear a little bit about your journey and why you decided to run.
Had a lot of people ask me that because I'm not the typical person you see running for office. So I definitely haven't gone up through the political system. But I guess the short answer is I've been involved in more on the freedom fighter side for a long time.
Great.
I started really getting involved in politics. Not in politics, but understanding politics around the time when George Bush Jr. was in office.
Okay.
So I was a big fan of his first term. Second term, I ended up reading, getting into reading and learning. And the more I learned about the level of corruption, I guess, the more I became really frustrated because I was a big history guy. I loved the Cold War. And the more I learned, the more I realized how much I thought I knew was just really wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
many of us.
Yeah. It's that whole thing. History is written by the winners. And
right.
And, so very concerned actually when Obama was running, he was running against Ron Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, was here in Utah, and I actually brought Ron Paul out, helped him fundraise. So I got to spend some time with him. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was awesome, but it was also really frustrating because you got to see how the media was really spinning things and doing the stats wrong. Everything. I mean, they did a lot to sabotage him. Yeah. And so it took me from being frustrated to like really just feeling like losing hope in a sense. And then Obama, demoralized, absolutely. Yeah. And then Obama gets in office. I'm like, we're done, Yeah. And then, but then Obama was actually, I like to say we've been really going downhill in this country for a good solid 100 years. You look at the
I think longer actually, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good place to look is 1913, the Federal Reserve, the 16th to 17th Amendment.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, right. I go 1861. I think that was kind of the huge inflection point. But I agree with you. 1913 was another major tipping point.
Massive, right? That was massive. That time period is massive, and all the New Deal stuff that between now and 1930s. But anyways, for a long time we've been just really just going downhill, and to me it's like, who's to blame? It's these politicians is my thinking. But the reality is it's like, no, it's the people that allowed it to happen, that put them in office and didn't throw them out of office.
Yeah.
So enter Obama, and like, it's over, we're done. It's like, it's hopeless. And then something I never saw coming happened, and that was the Tea Party movement. Mm-hmm. I think we're kind of like the frog in slow boiling water, that Obama came and just cranked it up, and the frog started to jump. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden it was like everybody was starting to see some of the stuff that I've been concerned about for a long time. And it's like, wow, like people are waking up. And then when his midterms came, it was either Obama versus Romney. And it was like, I mean, in my opinion, the two same hands of the same deep state. It was like, and this is the game they play. Like, they give you the right, they give you the left, and either way they're taking away our freedoms through either party. So I was like, but what did happen there is, over the next starting his second term, over the next 6 years, we replaced 70% of the House and the Senate. Sorry, I'm losing you here. Let's see. Let me turn off my phone. It was, we replaced 70% of the House and Senate. It's the biggest house cleaning in the history of the country. You think about the Rand Pauls, the Trey Gowdies, that, sorry, I'm having people trying to call me. I need to fix that. Anyways, it was phenomenal. We had a massive house cleaning, and we shut Obama down. He got nothing done. And we went after the IRS. The IRS was targeting people. The EPA we defunded. It was like, honestly, it was like this amazing, like, all of a sudden I had all this hope.
Yeah.
And then after that, next election, it was, I was really concerned, but feeling hopeful because the people were so engaged. And, but I had so little faith in the two people we finally were able to choose from, because it always seemed over the past how many years, they kind of manipulated things. So it really didn't matter when it came to the final, last two people in the election. But, we saw the left going after Trump. I actually didn't like Trump at first at all. I saw the left go after him. I thought, yeah, the guy's kind of crazy. Then I saw the right going after him. The media was going after him. And I kind of like Ben Carson at the time.
Yeah.
And I was just looking for anybody that wasn't part of the deep state.
Right. Yeah. I hear you.
And so then Romney came out. I don't know if you remember, but Romney came out and like attacked Trump.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, wait a minute. That's our guy.
Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, because I'm like, because Romney's like obviously deep state. And so when I saw all these people after him, I was like, okay, you know what? The guy seems a little bit crass. He's not my type of guy. He says things, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly. And
like, totally don't trust the guy. But then he gets in office, and sure enough, you start watching the bills and watching what he actually did. I mean, obviously the way he handled himself is different, but you actually look what he did, and I was absolutely amazed.
So,
but
sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I very much like you, I didn't trust Trump at all in the beginning. And I remember having arguments with my dad. My dad loved him. And I remember I grew up right outside New York City. I lived in New York City. Like, I know people who knew Trump personally. I knew people who dated his kids. And I was like, he's best friends with the Clintons. They've got some deal. Like, I had this whole, thing in my head. I did not trust him. And within the first month, I was like, I was totally wrong. This is the first time I have seen a politician actually do what he says he's going to do. And he was far from perfect, but that was huge to see somebody actually deliver and do what they say they're going to do. You rarely see that in politics. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, I always try to keep a very distrustful eye on all politicians because power corrupts. So I've always had this kind of thing, watching him. But, another thing about Trump, besides the fact he actually, if you look at the legislation, what he actually did was phenomenal. Sure. But I think there was another interesting thing about him is that Trump really represented how the people felt. He
was a populist president. Yeah.
Well, yes. And think about it. For so long, we've been like silenced, politically correct, silence. And the Tea Party, people were so frustrated by this being silenced with political correctness. Totally. And Trump just comes out and he's like, just says all these things, offensive. And a lot of things just still like, I sometimes have a hard time with him when he says like, well, bro, just stop talking. But
yeah.
But he said what a lot of people felt.
Yes.
And I think there's so much more to him than people really want to recognize, but he really gave a lot of voice to that, these people who had been silenced forever. And so I think he did some really good things. Obviously he didn't help. You had CNN pushing divisiveness. He was a little divisive. So that was one of the bad things, is it led to more divisiveness. But it really solidified the conservative side and gave them a little bit more strength and confidence to stand up for themselves. But one of my biggest concerns with Trump, and I'm not anti-Trump at all. Sure. But we had this, what got us there and got us energy independent and led us to like the middle class start growing again, and all these fundamental things that are important for freedom. was not necessarily Trump. It
Mhm.
was the people who got involved back when Obama was in office. So it was the
Yeah.
people that woke up and said enough's enough, and the people and Trump and all these Freedom Caucus type guys were a reflection of the people being engaged.
Yeah.
So the danger is and the bad thing what happened is there was this it was almost like the people feel like we won. Our
Right.
guys there trust the plan.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And what happened is, the most essential thing for freedom, not the president, but the people
Yeah.
went back to work, went back to entertaining themselves, and we started allowing Romney gets in office. We allow these, these rhinos to get back in office because we took our hands off the steering wheel.
Right.
And to me, that's what really was like the downfall. And then the elections happened, and of course, I think most people common sense. You look at these stadiums chanting, how much they love Biden. I think it's pretty clear that there's no way that he got more votes than anyone in the history of this country. I mean, that's obvious. So,
right.
So, I've been working for a political watchdog organization the last 6 years.
Right.
And basically what we do is we get business owners involved in the political process, letting them know what bills are being voted on every week when Congress is in session. And then the click of a button, they send a letter to their senators and their congressmen and say, hey, I'm either for this bill or I'm against it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the congressmen and senators write them back. And then when they vote, we send them an email or through our app, we let them know, hey, here's how they voted. Let them know what you think. So I loved it because it was this accountability, we were basically helping increase accountability in Washington.
Right.
And so I'm having conversations with business owners all day long about their frustrations and their excitement when Trump was in office. And then after January 6th, it was like, I'm seeing all these, people mostly here in Utah. And it was like, everyone was giving up hope. And everyone was like, it's over and there's no hope for the country. And I'm like, and it was really frustrating because if the people give up hope and they don't get involved, then we really lose this country.
Of course.
And so, I'm telling them, no, remember what happened with Obama. And I said, look, I have more hope now than I did when Obama was first in office, because think about this. How many people were awake when Obama was first in office?
It's true.
Nobody, right? Until the TV starts.
And I always say the Great Awakening combats the Great Reset, right? So we need more people to wake up. Yeah.
So think about, compared to when early Obama compared to today, how many people are awake now comparatively?
Yeah. So many people.
A lot of people are awake, understand the principles of freedom, and they're not sitting on the sidelines. So what I tell, these business owners is say, look, what do you think is going to happen this time when Biden comes and cranks up the heat?
Mm-hmm.
If we saw the Tea Party movement, what that did, how Obama led to the Tea Party movement, a sleeping nation, what do you think is going to be coming over the next few years?
Right.
And it is the Tea Party times 10 times 20. And that's why, I says, look, I've got more hope now because I actually feel like Biden's a good thing, because and this is what I tell people, it's like freedom is like oxygen. Mm-hmm. You don't value it until you start to lose it.
Yeah, it's true.
And, and the good comparison is 1774. 1775, why didn't we have the Revolutionary War in 1774, 75? Right. The ideas were there. People were teaching principles of liberty. But they needed the noose of England to tighten, more troops on the ground, more, tyranny for people to finally say enough's enough. In fact, look at John Adams. Mm-hmm. John Adams early on, he kind of was against these people standing up and causing trouble. When the Boston Tea Party happened, he was upset at what Americans did there. But eventually, when the tyranny got strong enough, or the noose got tight enough around the neck, he became one of the greatest proponents for freedom.
Right.
So right now we have a lot of John Adams out there that are still like, things are okay, but as Biden tightens the noose, around our collective necks,
Yeah.
we are going to see more and more people. Everyone has a different threshold for tyranny. For some of us, like, we see the noose even getting near us and we're like kicking and screaming, like, get out. We
I
saw
know.
that was in office. It was too much. Other people, like, when it's just around, slightly around the neck, they say this is enough. You saw a lot of people last year wake up, right, during COVID.
Yeah.
A lot of people like, this isn't okay. And that was great for waking people up. Well, there are some people more, and as that noose tightens, we are going to see more and more people wake up. And freedom is always about the people.
Always.
Not about politicians.
Of the people, by the people, for the people, right? Yeah. Never incumbent upon one man or one plan. It is always we, the people. Absolutely. Yeah. So I have this. So it was like, I started having all this hope. I'm like, this is exactly what we need, because for us to get our freedoms back, we need the people to wake up and say enough is enough. So asking why I decided to run at this point, I still had no intention of running. In fact, my thing was I was always very frustrated with politicians. Sure.
But at this point, it was like, you know what? I was telling my members and these business owners, like, guess what? Here's the cool thing. Think about these schools too, how horrible they are with, the colleges. But there's always duality in everything. Mm-hmm. Whenever, so the more light, the brighter, the more darkness, the greater the light. So I said, think about some of these young kids coming out of college right now. You have some of the most bright lights coming out of these colleges, the Candace Owens, the Charlie Kirks, we can go through and name several of these amazing young patriots. Mm-hmm. Because it used to be you went to college and you were conservative because your parents were. But now you have to understand the principles of liberty. Right. So I'm like, guess what? We're going to have some leadership that's going to start showing up. In 2022, 2024, there's going to be a house cleaning like this country's never seen. And we're going to have straight up patriot, philosopher warriors that we're going to send to Washington. And we are going to clean house and go after these people. And eventually, people like say, well, wait, why don't you? And I'm like, well, it's not my thing. I'm not, especially I've got a colorful past, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, I've never like geared up and, to be a politician. But eventually, I was at a John Eldridge men's retreat, and we spent a few days up in the woods, just a lot disconnected from phones and kind of some spiritual messages, and just had the feeling I needed to do it. And it terrified me. But I realized, I have a choice. I can wait for 2022 to come, mm-hmm. and find out, nobody stood up, or find out someone did stand up and they knew how to talk all the talking points, but they didn't understand the Constitution. And if that happens, and I know I could have stood up and I didn't, mm-hmm. then all of a sudden I'm now responsible for not doing something when I knew I could have. And I may not understand the administrative side of politics, but I understand the principles of the Constitution. I understand the principles of liberty and the proper rule of government. And we've seen administrative, politicians destroy this country over the last 100+ years. And
Administrative Procedural Act of 1947. Yeah.
Yeah, but what we don't have is people understand proper principles of government. And so I was like, you know what? I do know what authority the government has and what it doesn't have. I know where they're crossing the line all the time. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I can sit and complain, or I can stand up and do my part. And I've really just come to believe that, and the other reason I want to do it is I've been talking to again, I'm having these conversations with business owners all day long. And I'm telling them the key to freedom is we have to pull power out of the federal government. It's completely reversed its role from being, it used to be God, the individual, local government, state, and then federal with almost no power in our lives. Right. Well, they've managed to eliminate God over the last 10+ years and completely flip the power structure. So then now as the federal government, the bureaucracies, the state, local government, and then the collectivism is, it's not even about the U.S. individual, it's what group you belong to. Yep. And then the individual doesn't matter. They literally, there is a war against the individual and a war against God. And so I'm telling people the answer is we got to flip it back the correct way. And we've got to, the way to stop the federal government is through getting control of our states. Yeah.
Did you hear Jen Psaki say how the federal government has all power over the states? Has she read the Constitution? She overlooked the 10th Amendment?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's even beyond the 10th Amendment. It was the states, the 13 states
Yep.
that got together and created the federal government.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
so the federal government is subservient to the states, but we have given up the power of the states to the federal government, and it's the only way to fix that is the states have to stand up and say, no, you've exceeded your authority. We are pulling power away from you, and we're putting a constitutional wall around here, and we will not comply with what you're doing. And you're seeing Texas and Florida and South Dakota, some of these states doing it. Some here in Utah telling our business owners, you need to know your state rep, you need to know your state senator. Like, we've got to step up and we've got a clean house in Utah. And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm going around, I've got 250, 300 business owners here, but that's not enough. And I'm like, we got to get this message out to the mainstream. We've got to get the message out to the people. We want to fix the country. It's not about waiting for a president. It's not waiting for our governor. The answer is you have to go to the highest authority, and that's the people.
Yeah. We
are the highest authority in the land. The answers have to come from us. We are the leaders we're looking for. And so my message is, hey, let's get out to the people and tell the people it's time to get our country back. And it starts with each of us individually putting our lives in order with God. This Constitution was written for a moral and religious people and is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. If the more out of alignment our own lives are, the more we have need to be controlled by the outside. If we can't control ourselves, we need outside forces to control us. I.e., that's why our prisons are filled. We have to restore fathers. We have to restore the family. We have gun problems. So to say. Well, the gun problems actually are fatherless problems. All the crime, even the corrupt politicians. We want to fix all these problems. We need to fix the family. Yeah. We need to fix the individuals. We need individuals aligned with God, aligned with living their true purpose, living the best they know how, putting their families in order, and then it moves outwards. God, family, country. You cannot have your life unaligned and then say, I'm going to go fix the country when your own house is not in order. And so that's the message we're telling people is, look, the country's a mess. The place to start is in our own backyard. Let's put our lives in order and let's start taking over some of these seats. Let's run for school board. Let's run for city council. Let's run for the most important roles are not our federal offices. It's state Congress, state senator. It is our state. Why? So if that's the most important, why am I running for a federal position?
Yeah, tell me.
One reason, for the platform. Because everyone thinks that's the role that matters. So he's running, let's listen to him. No. That's why I'm running is, hey, I'm doing this. And it's to remind you that what I'm doing, running for federal, is not nearly as important as these people running for your state. The battle is for our state. The battle is for our families, and then to get our state in line. And we got 3 years to do it. And by 2024, every single seat should, including our senator, we can have an absolute house cleaning. If we, the people, will unite, get organized, and start working together as we, the people. And to me, that's why when people say, oh, I'm hopeless. I'm like, there's no hope. I'm like, you're absolutely wrong. This is the time of great hope. Look what's going on in Australia. The people are waking up. They're hitting the streets. Paris, around the world, people are waking up. Even New York now, where my wife's from, her family's from there, people are waking up out there and they're starting to hit the streets. People are going to wake up. And my mission and our mission is to help them wake up and provide leadership for people to say, so that when they do wake up, people can get involved and people can start leading this movement. And that's really, what I believe the key to getting this saving Constitution is.
Well, that's beautiful. I very much support your mission. I'm curious though, you talk a lot about the people getting involved, the people taking action. You talked about 2022, 2024, cleaning house. What are your thoughts on, the state of our election integrity and the hopes for us to clean house?
So I'm very concerned. And I think, to not be concerned is to have your head in the sand. And I will tell you, I'm here in Utah, and Utah's an amazing state, people with amazing values. But there's a problem we have is that we tend to think everything's okay.
Right.
And the more I've been involved in this political process, the more I've started to realize things are not as great here in the state, as far in the political realm as I had believed. We have some major challenges here. It's not, Utah is its own deep state. Let's just put it that way. So there is a problem, and it seems like most states have a problem at some degree.
Right. But
it's no problem that a solid group of people who believe in the principles of liberty can't fix. This can be fixed, and it may take a couple of years, but we can replace people who are not standing up for election integrity. We can demand that people start being, when the people are united. And my goal is by next summer, I want to see, my goal is, it's not about, obviously we want to win, but even more important than winning is I'd like to have 10,000 people organized by next summer, where we want to hit the Capitol and say, hey, we're not going to comply with this, or we need to get people involved on this issue or that issue. That's power. The power is the people. And if we have 10,000 people demanding that some of these Dominion voting systems we have here in Utah, that, get out of there.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate the power of the people.
Yeah.
Last Monday, we had 1,000 people show up at the state Capitol building about the mandates, these vaccine mandates. We had 1,000 citizens show up. Right. There was 3 overflow rooms and demand accountability. This is, we will not comply. Out of 1,000 people, there was probably a handful of people who were pro mandate. And that sent a very powerful message to our politicians that a groundswell is happening, awakening is happening. A power change is coming, and it is changing from politicians to the people. And courage breeds courage. The more people start getting involved and standing up, and that's one of the other things I like about why I'm doing this. I've got a really flawed background. I'm a normal guy. I mean, I've been beat up. I've been knocked down. I got back up. And if I can stand up and get in this fight, I guarantee so can you. And that's the message is, look, we all have a role to play. Mm-hmm. We didn't come here to sit on the sidelines and watch our children's freedoms get washed away. We came here to play a role in this amazing battle. And I believe this is one of the most important times in history of this earth. This battle right now, what we're facing over agency and tyranny, over the future of this country. Will we stay a republic? Will the Constitution remain? Right. The ramifications are massive, because if we lose the light of liberty here, it'll go out throughout the whole world.
Absolutely.
And we have an ability to make a difference.
Yeah.
No. We have a role to play.
We do. Absolutely. My analogy is always the beekeeper. I say that how they say that when all the bees go, then humanity is done, the world will die. But I feel that way about America. I think that, when we go, the world follows. And so it's incumbent upon us to preserve the free will of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a really cool video I saved. It was on Instagram, and it was someone interviewing, a reporter. He's obviously a very conservative reporter in Australia, and they're talking about everything going on out there and his concerns and how they're losing everything.
Yeah.
And the guy in America says, "Do you have anything to say to our audience here in America?" Yeah. And he says, "Wake up." He's like, all the world is waiting for you and watching you. We need you. Like, you cannot be asleep right now. If you guys don't stand up, it's over.
Yeah.
And so we all have a responsibility. We the people, we have a responsibility. We live like kings and queens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're very fortunate. Yeah.
We've been blessed and handed down a gift from our forefathers, mm-hmm. of this freedom, this liberty. And just to put it in perspective, just realize in the first 7,000 years we've been on this earth as human beings, when the founding fathers created this country, we were still at a horse and plow.
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
And then they created the Constitution and this principle of the divine worth of the individual and the importance of respecting each individual and keeping the government out of the way, of over-regulating, controlling and directing and managing these people. And in a matter of 200 years of light and liberty, we went from the horse and plow to where the average person lives better than any emperor, and I'll say emperor, could have ever dreamed.
Yeah.
That I didn't create electricity. I didn't create all this wealth and this abundance in my life. That was given to me.
Yeah.
And I have a choice: either use up all the resources that I've been given, all these blessings, and then leave nothing so my children go back into debtors and into enslavement like most of humanity. Or I can say, I've been blessed with freedom and liberty. I've been blessed with prosperity. And it's worth me investing in making sure I can pass that down to my children as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you look at what's going on right now with this spending money, with opening our borders, Afghanistan, with China at our doorstep. It's like we are literally on the verge of losing everything. I mean, we're printing money, and it's causing inflation. It's causing, raise in taxes. But the biggest thing is we're stealing money from our children. Mm-hmm. And it's like, are we that selfish that all we're thinking about is the now?
Yeah. Short-sighted.
Yeah. Give me money. Let me just take care of me for myself. Let me give me universal basic income. And we're not thinking about what is the consequence.
Right. Absolutely. The two things I wanted to address. One, you mentioned the Dominion machines, and I just want to address it's not just the Dominion. They've shown that there are many other companies. That's the famous one at this point, but all of these companies that are hooked up to the internet, and there's no reason for any machines to be hooked up to the internet. So yeah, I just wanted to address that. And the other thing I'd really like to ask you about is you've mentioned several times now freedom and liberty. And I do think that they are slightly nuanced difference between the two. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, if you could expound on that a bit.
All right. So I read up on this a little while ago. So you're going to refresh me. Okay. So if I recall correctly, one is freedom to make a choice, but you're not free of has to do with the consequence. Let's see. You share with me. It'll come back.
Sure.
I do remember reading on this, but there is a difference.
So the way I see it, and I mean, we can look up the actual definition so that we're, speaking in, specific and accurate terms. But in terms of just how I see it, I look at freedom as being something that is, individual. It requires personal responsibility in order to have freedom. But it's something that has to be exercised. It's like you use it or lose it type of thing. But it is I think that it's one of the things that we are, endowed. Whereas liberty to me is more of a governmental construct to protect, the liberties of the society and the people that are being governed. That's kind of, a very probably awkward way to explain it. But yeah, so I was curious your thoughts on it. But yeah, I would love to, maybe we will just look up freedom versus liberty.
Yeah, no. And I think that is the whole point too, that a society of people who are not in control, are not able to master their own lives, are incapable of having liberty either. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the challenges. I mean, and that's why to me it starts with the individuals. Is if I'm not in control of my own life, if I'm enslaved by my habits, if I'm enslaved by vices, addiction, I'm not free as an individual. And in a society of people who are not free as individuals cannot have liberty.
Yeah, and I
rule over them.
I think absolutely. And I think why it's such an important distinction, I think right now, is because I think both are being stifled, honestly. Like that's how I see it. I think both are being trampled on. But I think that the freedoms are being trampled on through a lot of, social engineering and conditioning. People are being conditioned to be complacent and not take ownership of their own lives. and they are not, people don't often, whatever responsibility they can defer, they typically do. And so I think it's become a negative feedback loop where, the government's the government, and not just the government, but well, just for lack of a better way of putting it, I'll just say the powers that be, they want people to be dependent. So they create, lots of psychological conditioning for people to be, emotionally, physically, financially dependent upon, either substances or, media or different policies that, or I'm thinking like the different kinds of platforms that have been implemented, like welfare or, the social, what is the word for that? Why am I blanking? But you know what I'm saying? The platforms, the constructs that people become dependent upon. So I think that there's, that side of it where freedom gets stripped because people are not exercising their freedom. And there's also the, the incrementalism that's involved, we just wear a mask, just 2 weeks to flatten the curve. These are the more recent things that we've seen, but they slowly strip away our freedoms. And then there's the liberties that are actually taken away as a result, so I think it's a feedback loop. But I think it's important for people to understand that liberties are something that the government should be protecting. Whereas the freedoms are something that I think individuals should exercise, and people should be, it's incumbent upon we, the people, to fight back and demand, that we have ownership over our free will and our personal freedoms. So that's kind of, I don't think I articulated it very well, but that's,
but you're exactly right. And, and that's the thing that is governments typically move in one direction. And that's, once they start to gain power, those goes to total power. There's history shows a very clear lesson of that. And I mean, as an example, it rarely, how about never happens that once the government gains power and once people give up their,
they don't relinquish it.
And so it is scary. And and I think to me the whole thing with we're in a very dangerous place right now, and there's such a we've become so soft as a nation. Like we've really come to value safety over everything. And it's interesting because you even look back when I was a kid, and I was a little bit in a more rough neighborhood here, but we were having BB gun wars, and like literally, one pump shoot each other, and obviously you shouldn't be doing that stuff. But when you compare that, and us going off these dirt hills, and these jumps on our bikes, and no one wore helmets back then, and come home with scars and scabs and skateboarding down this, crashing. It's funny because now you look down, you see like kids riding a bike with a mask and a helmet and elbow pads. And not to say that's wrong, but it's like just to compare our society, how much we've but this actually matters because
it does.
Warrior societies, when you study warrior societies, and even like our, the founding fathers and what this country was built upon, there's a real value. The value is always freedom. Like freedom is and the lower value is safety. In fact, it was always safety was always, almost like the value was always freedom way over safety. And, and even just looking in my own life, this shift to where now this is hyper concern with our safety. And the reason that's dangerous is when our biggest priority or value is our safety, then what are we willing to trade for that safety?
Exactly.
And I think right now in this society, we're raising children that are so concerned about safety that we need to put them in safe spaces where even language is not safe. And it's creating a very weak generation.
Absolutely.
And that generation, when you're so concerned with safety, then all of a sudden, once you have the threat, now all of a sudden you're willing to do whatever to protect me. And so
you're willing to let the government come in, and tyranny always comes under the guise of safety and protection.
Always. I mean, 1984, there's constant war, it's constant war, it's constant threat, it's constant danger. And that is what was it that John Adams said? But yeah, I mean, fear is one of the greatest, tools for tyranny.
Absolutely.
And when you breed a society that is extremely fearful, that's a society that's just ready to be swept up in tyranny. And so
that's some of the social conditioning I was alluding to, is to breed this fear and make people so risk adverse. I think that's one of the things you're really alluding to when you talk about, the difference of the warrior mentality and how they value freedom, but they're willing to take risks. And this country, was founded by risk takers. And I have a theory that it's actually I know it's a genetic trait. It's the RDR4 with the 7th allele, is the risk taking gene. And I think that, our founders probably had a higher percentage of people who had that gene. And I think it's being bred out generation after generation, which is really sad because you need, and this is part of why you need strong men. It's another reason why I think they're trying to breed out, they call masculinity toxic, because strong men are risk takers. They are willing to go out and fight for the freedom because they want autonomy over their own lives and the ability to take the risk to provide and protect for their loved ones. So,
yeah, that's a really powerful point. And, it's been interesting because as I've, over the years, had my frustrations about this country, and I'm always want to say, what's the root problem? And at first, it's politicians. And then the more I dug, no, it's the people. And then I came to see, no, it's the family. It's the family that's it's collapsed the family. But where I've really kind of settled now is I think the biggest problem in this country is the failure of men.
Yeah, I think that's a huge, and I don't blame them entirely because I think there has been, I think it's by design. I think there has been a construct to weaken men intentionally.
Yeah, no question. I mean, all you gotta do is to understand what's going on is dig into Marxism and dig into. All you have to do is study China, study Russia, and the key for communism and Marxism is you have to destroy the family, and the best way to destroy the family is destroy the man, destroy the marriage. And so this is what we're experiencing. This is why history is so important. And it's so damning to our country that we are ripping history out of our schools. They say over half of the kids don't even know what Auschwitz is. I mean, in fact, you can take an AP history class in Utah. Get this, AP history, you will not learn about the Holocaust.
Wow. Okay, that's horrifying.
So this is why you do not want the government running your schools.
No.
Okay, government is not the answer. It is the problem. The founding fathers said the Constitution was a chain to control the government. And no, switching gears here, but the problem with the government is, I was talking to a gun shop owner, and we were talking about, what I do, how getting people involved in holding Congress accountable and getting people more involved in holding Congress accountable. And he said, Jason, I served I was a sniper. I had over 1,000 confirmed kills. And he said, I want you to know something. He said, all these people, that are riding Congress, these other business owners that participate in the organization, he said they could leave their jobs, leave their wives, they could go to Iraq, and they could even lay down their lives for this country. Yeah. But he said it would not have near the impact on preserving our freedoms as what they're doing right here, as far as fighting with the pen to hold Congress accountable. And then he quoted Thomas Paine, who said, it's the duty of the true patriot to protect its country from its government. We forget government is not, it is fire. It is dangerous. And now we want government running our schools, running our welfare systems, running our, every aspect, our healthcare, every aspect of our lives. The greatest threat to mankind has been governments. I mean, in the last, here we are talking about the pandemic. Did we not forget about the pandemic of communism in the last century? It murdered 100 million middle class, its own citizens.
Right. Christians,
Jews, anyone who believed in God, anyone who could provide for themselves was murdered by these communist regimes. And yet here we're saying, oh, we need to fear, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be conscious about, viruses and sicknesses, but the irony is we're so caught up on this virus that we're giving the federal government
that has a 99.9% survival rate for most people. I mean, there was once upon a time where there were infectious diseases that really were, pandemics. This doesn't qualify as an epidemic, let alone a pandemic. And that's not to say that people don't get sick, but it should not be creating the kind of fear and tyrannical approaches that we're seeing.
Yeah, and see, and this is the thing about the pandemic too. Is look, I'm fine if we're going to have a side that says, you know what, this is something we need to lock down and we want to do this. But what I'm not fine with is when we want to stop debate. When debate is no longer okay, because it was, well, back in the past we did this, and back in the past we did this, and in England when they had bombers coming at night, it was mandatory when closed. It was law. You had to block out the light. Great. There are times when we've done things like that.
Right.
But what is not okay is when there is no debate. When we say this is what we're doing,
freedom of
and
speech.
if you want to question it, you will be censored. You will be silenced. And that is what is so dangerous.
Absolutely.
You know what? You want to have different theories. We need theories. We need different conversations. We need conversations right. We need conversations left, and we need to have conversations together so we can find middle ground. Yeah. But the problem is when we say this is the answer, and anyone who questions it will be silenced and will be eliminated. There are so many things that are terrifying about what's going on right now. And the problem is we don't have people raised in our school systems. We can't think critical. Like we can't think, I was in Portland this week and I'm ordering at a pizza place. I'm outside, there's a plexiglass window that goes the full thing. I mean, there's no gap there. And I'm outside and the guy comes, he's wearing a mask. He says, I can't take your order if you're not wearing a mask. I'm like, I'm just curious, like if I was sick, how could that virus even get through this plexiglass? But the thing is, we're not allowed to think critical anymore. Like thinking critical is oh, you're crazy. Like, and, like even thinking critically now is like, you're not allowed to think. And that's so dangerous.
Dangerous. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, you.
Oh, I was just going to say one of my favorite quotes from Richard Feynman, the scientist. He said, there are many questions that cannot be answered, but there are no answers that cannot be questioned. That's science, right? And we've lost that. Now it's, the experts have spoken and you cannot question it. That's not science.
No.
Yeah.
No, but just bringing it full circle though, because it is so easy to get frustrated in how things are right now. But freedom is a circular thing. And we're at a point right now where when you let freedom go for long enough, tyranny always grows. And then there comes a point where tyranny, the noose gets tight enough, and people start to fight back, and then freedom comes again. So. And especially in America, I really believe the light of liberty will not be extinguished here. And so I try to keep from getting caught up in all the negative and just remember that there is a blessing in all this.
Yeah, for sure.
And the blessing is, it is people are waking up. People are seeing through some of this stuff that, wow, you know what? It is weird that we're not allowed to question that. It is weird that everyone who questions is silenced. It is weird that you have social media people silencing certain people. Like since when is that what freedom's about? Right. So I again, this is a good time for America because I think we are seeing an awakening happen. And more than an awakening, it needs to be people saying, I'm not just going to be awake, but I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do something about it.
Right.
And I think that. And I think that's where we're heading. I think that's what we're going to see the next 3 years is a huge resurgence of the people. And I think the fact of the matter is, I've got a book that talks about it, but actually, this is a cool book.
Okay.
Why Civil Resistance Works, and it's actually a leftist type book.
That looks awesome. I love the title.
Yeah, and it's actually written, not for us, but they study every peaceful revolution since this in the last 200 years. Civil rights movement, Gandhi. They go through it, different parts of the world.
Right.
And you want to know what's fascinating is what percentage of people do you think need to be involved peacefully for a revolution or to change over a government? What
11%.
11?
11.
Okay. The answer they found was 3.5%.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the founding fathers.
I thought I read that it was 11% you need to have 11% resistance. 3.
No. This is why Patrick Henry is, we don't need or Samuel Adams, we don't need a majority to prevail, but rather an irate minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom. We don't need the masses. And what we need is 3.5% people saying we will not comply. 3.5% in the streets. And
that's amazing.
Doable.
That's so hopeful. Yeah, that's completely feasible.
And that's why the left, what the people don't realize is we are in a race because we're no longer a constitutional republic. We are a very solid democracy that's very lean, that's more socialist than we are constitutional republic. And democracies never last. They always they always fall because it's tyranny of the masses.
Yeah, so, mob rule. Yeah,
mob rule. So we are in a transitionary state in this country.
The post-constitutional era. Yeah,
we are in a race to that 3.5%, which is why critical race theory. If you really get down to the bottom of it, it is all about activism.
Mass line actions. That's what Mao called it. Yep, mass line actions.
And Obama, community leaders, they realize if they can get 3.5% of the population in the streets, that is enough to turn the government. But it's the same principle for us. If we can get 3.5% of people who believe in the principles of liberty to do more than sit and hide behind their computer screen and just watch and maybe like and occasionally say something pro-freedom, if we can get those people to start getting involved in politics, start getting involved in helping run events, start getting involved in organizing events, start getting involved in showing up at events, we don't need the masses.
Right. We need learn lessons from what works, from what they do.
Yeah.
We should learn. Yeah.
And the thing is, the establishment, that's what the thing about January 6th, it was so significant.
Yeah.
That was a massive not checkmate, but that was a massive move because these guys are we are fighting brilliant minds. And they are so far advanced. So they've been planning this for years.
Decades.
For decades. And but the fortunate thing for us is we have light on our side. We have truth on our side.
Yeah.
So, and I believe we're going to win.
That.
But, so January 6th was a stroke of brilliance because what it did is after the elections, there was this huge groundswell of freedom lovers that says, this is not okay. And they weren't violent, but they were upset. Well, January 6th was like a stroke of brilliance because what it basically did is it came and put a huge squash on that movement and said, you're all terrorists. And all the politicians played along. Oh yeah, January 6th, like you're all, terrible. All these right-wing crazy terrorist patriots. And it's like, and what did that do to that whole movement? What would leave that 3.5%? It sent them all scurrying their homes, hiding behind their computer screens.
Right.
And the truth is, the First Amendment is the right to assemble.
Yeah. Yep. The right to assemble and the right
when you go to a football game, think of the energy when you have, thousands of people harmonizing on this, on something simple as a football team and the energy that brings.
Yeah.
What would happen if we had 10,000 people harmonizing on freedom?
That'd be amazing.
The power that can change the world.
Absolutely.
And so that's why, to me, that is the key to freedom. That is the path to victory is we have to light the fire of liberty in people's hearts. It's already there. We just need to inspire them to stand up and get involved. And you see the left, they know it. That's why, 3%ers, if you do this, you're a terrorist. The biggest threat to this country is these conservatives. They do not want us to assemble.
No, of course.
And that's exactly why we must assemble.
Yeah. Absolutely. I want to read these definitions. I think it might be useful for the audience and maybe for us. So let me read at least what they have now. Definitions have changed, but we'll read what they say. Freedom, they list 6 definitions. The condition of not being in prison or captivity, the condition of being free of restraints, especially the ability to act without control or interference by another or by circumstance, the condition of not being controlled by another nation or political power, political independence, the condition of not being subject to despotic or oppressive power, civil liberty. And then 5, the condition of not being constrained or restricted in a specific aspect of life by a government or other power. And 6, the condition of not being a slave. And so then I looked up liberty, and let's see, liberty, let's see all of them. Definition. All right, let's see the whole thing. All right, they have 8 definitions of liberty. The condition of being free from confinement, servitude, or forced labor. 2, the condition of being free from oppressive restriction or control by a government or other power. 3, a right to engage in certain actions without control or interference by a government or other power. 4, the right or power to act as one chooses. 5, a deliberate departure from what is proper, accepted, or prudent, especially. 6, a breach or overstepping of propriety or social convention. 7, a departure from strict compliance. And 8 is a deviation from accepted truth or known fact. Interesting.
Love it.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that it's really interesting. They're really similar, but I do think there's a slight nuance in the sense of that one does seem to be much more personally related. I think of freedom as being, much more individual, and, liberty, the liberty of the people. And that should be protected, in our case, is protected by the Constitution, whether it be our, national constitution or the state constitutions that we have. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And hence Patrick Henry's correct usage of give me liberty or give me death.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I think people need to return to that and stand up for it. So I'm curious with you running, you said that if you can do it, then anybody can, that you're, the everyman and you don't have a perfect path. What are some of the things that are most daunting to you about running, that you've had to kind of tackle, it looks like your passion has kind of surmounted that, but what has been some of the things that made you question maybe doing this, if this was?
When the impression first came to me to do it, I was terrified. I told you I was up this men's retreat, and I just was absolutely embarrassed that I would even think that. And it was like, is this something coming from, above, or is this my ego? And the last thing I want to do is let my ego put me into a place that is absolutely going to ruin my family and my life. My life was actually pretty good at the time. I was, very comfortable. We own our home. My wife and I spend a lot of time together. Our girls are raised. Like, we're in a good spot in our lives right now.
Right.
And so, I was really embarrassed even to talk about it, because it's like, who am I? And those who know me know that I've really struggled with some things in my life. Like I come from a broken family, and good mom, good dad, but again, society is really fallen apart. And and it makes it very hard to raise families in this society, and especially when you have, my dad came from his dad came from Greece, and he came from a very abusive home. So these things are generational. And so, I've had a rough life. I've been through some real rough things, and I made a lot of really bad decisions on my own. And I've had to climb out of, literally claw my way out of hell to kind of overcome some things in my life. So it's like, so for someone like me to say something so audacious as I'm going to run for Congress, I dropped out of high school.
Wow.
It was rough growing up. I ended up later getting in college and doing pretty well, ended up going to BYU, but so it's like, that's part of it. And we all have, I think that's something we all struggle with, is we have the world inside. We have the world inside that tells us that we have divine worth, and that, we have the seeds of divinity. And that side always kind of inspires us to, reach our highest potential. But we also have the outer world that kind of tells us we're nobody, and that we can't amount to much. And that side that kind of brings down our, that we have these dueling battles within.
Yeah.
And so it was really tough for me, because it's like, I was very embarrassed. I was actually embarrassed to tell. I was with my brother and my dad at the time at that camp, and I wouldn't even tell them because I was so embarrassed to admit it. Came home that night. I wouldn't even tell after I got home I wouldn't tell my wife. And I had some things for me that really solidified. Actually, Jordan Peterson, I was reading a book, and like, there's a lot of cool things that kind of just happened to where it's like, I just realized I had to do it. And I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't at that point.
Right.
There was a point where it's like, if I didn't run, I would be not true to myself, and I would never be able to live with myself. And so even though, like, I know, and that's the other thing that's hard, is I know what's coming. I know these people. I know that the degree of these people are, these powers are not good people. I don't want to say they're not good people. There's deep corruption, and to go and to walk right in and point at it and say, this is what it is, and this corruption is real, and these people need to be brought out of there.
Yeah.
I know full well what's coming. And they will, and I know they will try to wreck my life, my reputation. I know all my mud and all the mistakes I've made, and I made plenty. They will try to rub it, I know what's coming. And and at night, sometimes it does terrify me of what's coming, but what am I going to do? What are we going to do when we realize what's at stake? This is not a game. And this is what frustrates me, these politicians. This is not a game. Like, we are literally about to lose everything. People don't realize what's coming. When you understand what happened in Nazi Germany, in Russia, in China, when Marxism takes over, it is not a game. It is not fun. It is not about power. It is not about politics. It is not about career. It is about, at that point, that is what's coming. Yeah. And I have a choice. I understand what's coming. And because I understand, I have a responsibility to speak up, come what may. So for me, it's like, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing too, is, if someone like me can stand up, and when they start throwing all my mud, and I know people, I'll lose, but if I can inspire other people, they may be able to get rid of, they may be able to, discredit me, but if I can get the idea of liberty and truth out there, the idea that we do hold the power, it's no longer about me. If we can get that message to spread like wildfire, it doesn't matter what, if they take out a few people's reputations, because the people will regain the power. And either the federal government holds the power, the local government holds the power, or the people hold the power. Either our rights come from God, or they come from the federal government. It's not both. It's one or the other. Absolutely. And I happen to believe that there is a God, and that our rights come from him, and that it is our responsibility and duty, as it says in the Declaration of Independence, to control and rein in and keep the government in check. So yeah, I have plenty of fears. How in the world am I going to raise $800,000 when I don't have any special interest group? How is that money where's that money going to come from when the most you can get is $3,000 from a person? And that's even, there's so many things. I don't know how it's going to work, but it's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, look, we have responsibility to stand up and speak. And there's nothing more powerful than our voices. God created the world by the power of the logos, by speaking. Yes. And it is by speaking that you bring order into chaos. And our world is in chaos, and we need people to stand up and speak the truth. That book right there, Alexander Solzhenitsyn in the Gulag Archipelago, one man exposed the entire communist regime. He exposed what happened to gulags, and one man who spoke up with courage, even though it could have cost him his life, brought the entire Communist Party. So who am I? I'm one man. And we did a Constitution class. My wife and I did with some just regular people that love freedom. And we said, how many people does it take to change the country? And there's this little 19-year-old girl, shy and quiet, who raised her hand and whispers, one person who stands with God.
Wow. Yeah. God is mentioned 6 times in the Constitution.
Yeah. And not even to mention and especially the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence is really, should never be overlooked about the principles that are in there, because that's the foundation that the Constitution is built upon. That's what people were.
Yeah. So, and the anti-federalists and the federalists. Yeah.
Yes. Even more important. But yeah, so is it terrifying? Absolutely, it's terrifying. Last night, I mean, there's been a lot of nights I don't sleep, and absolutely like terrified and overwhelmed of some of the challenges I'm up against. And but it's like, what other choice do we have?
Right. So for you, it is the only option, because it's a matter of your integrity and the future of not just this country. I think it's really the future of the world. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's how I see it.
No.
I really do see it as, the future of humanity is rest upon us. I believe that this nation was divine intervention to preserve the free will of humanity, and it's incumbent upon us now to preserve it and to fight for it. So I thank you for standing up and to have the courage, because I think that it's not about, we all have our fears, but courage isn't about the absolving of fears. It's about stepping through that fear and taking action, even in spite of it. So I'm thankful to people like you who are willing to do that, because there's a lot of risk involved, and especially in these times. But what's really interesting, when you study history and our founding fathers were not, they had everything. They had everything to lose, and they felt that freedom was more. And so they fought for freedom so that we could have freedom.
Well, and just I'll wrap it up with this is, I truly believe that it's not a coincidence that we are on the earth at this time. Right. And I don't believe it's a coincidence, the founding fathers, that a group of men and women of that character were in that location at that time. I believe that was orchestrated, by the hand of God. I firmly believe that. And I believe if people of that character were available at that time to create the country, I believe there will be people of such character at the time when it's when everything matters, and when at this great battle of liberty versus agency. I believe that there are people who are on this earth for such a time as this. And the more I get out and talk to people, the more I meet people whose hearts are on fire for freedom. And I believe their hearts are on fire for freedom because they have a role to play in this. We weren't sent here to sit on the sidelines. We don't need to be career politicians. It is by the small and simple people that great things happen. Yeah. And I think that is the great message, that the country is in trouble. And maybe you are sent. Maybe you are here to make a difference, not to sit on the sidelines, but to shape history.
Wow.
I firmly believe that.
I love that. I hope that we're going to see that. I think we are seeing that. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and then I will let you close out. So you're running, which is awesome. And, hopefully you'll tell everybody how they can support you. But not everybody is, that's not everybody's role to run. Right. So what do you think? You were saying, like not everybody should be a politician, and it's, the little people who make the difference. So what are some other ways that you think people can get involved and take responsibility and take ownership so that we can take ownership of our free will?
Very valuable question. I've got a very good friend I've come to know. Her name's Jamie Wadman. And, she's behind the scenes. She works tirelessly for freedom. Okay. And no one knows very well. People who are very involved know her name, but most people don't know her name. She doesn't speak. She's not running for office, but she told my wife something that I thought was so profound. She said, everyone talks about in the Battle of Trenton, when they crossed the Delaware and the soldiers and everything the soldiers, did. And
right.
But she says, I like to think of myself as one of the rowers in the boat.
Oh, wow.
Nobody thinks about the rowers.
Wow.
But there would have been nothing without those rowers. If there was, and it's so profound. And to me, that's why this starts with God, family, country. When my life, I've cared about freedom forever, but when my life was out of harmony with God, when I was mixed up and struggling with my problems, I was lost.
Mm-hmm.
I was lost. I couldn't hear direction. I couldn't find my soul's purpose. Why am I here? It wasn't until I put my life in harmony with living, let's even take God out of it, but living the best I knew how. Living according to my inner compass, to what my inner compass. It wasn't until I was got in alignment with my inner compass and was there for some time that my inner compass was able to guide me to where I needed to go and what my path was. And that's the neat thing is we all have different roles and none are more important than the other. I mean, the eye is not, the mouth's not more important than the hands or the feet. There is a role for everybody that has that fire of liberty and burning in their hearts. That fire of liberty is burning for a reason. It's because it is your soul calling you to action. And the key is the only way you'll know what your purpose is here is to live in alignment with your inner compass. Live true to what your heart knows is right. Absolutely. And once you live consistently long enough in harmony with what you know to be true, which ironically almost always is in alignment with what these laws of nature and the 10 Commandments, they're all the same. They always are aligned. Right. But once you're aligned there, all of a sudden, it is your calling. Yeah. And your soul has a purpose. And what that is, no one can tell you. But you are needed. I mean, how about all these mothers who maybe are not actively involved, but they're raising these children who are changing the world. These women that are sacrificing to teach their children the principles of liberty, raising patriots, and these patriots are going out and tenfold doing what any one person could do. So we all have an inner compass, and the key is we're here for a reason. And if especially if that spirit of liberty burns within you, to me that is a call. It is a call to action. And so the key is to live in alignment so that your compass can direct you to your calling. And I will tell you, when you are living in alignment with your calling, you will become alive and you will feel alive like you have never felt before. And that is why the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, is so many of us just living for food, for work, and meaningless lives because we're not living our true purpose. And that true purpose only can be found within.
Absolutely. I'm into that. Yeah. So beautiful and so profound. So, well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Please, if you have anything else you want to add and tell everybody how they can find you and what ways they can support you.
Yeah. Our social media on Facebook and Instagram is UT Jason Preston. So just UT like Utah, Jason Preston. Our website is jasonpreston.org. And, if you want to be involved, we need to build an army, and not fighting with the sword, but fighting with the pen, fighting with our hands, fighting a war of ideas. Yeah. And that's where we need people standing up. And it's an amazing time to be alive.
It is.
It is, honestly. The thing about it is there would have been no William Wallace if there was no tyranny, if right. Times were good. There would have been no founding fathers if they lived in peaceful times, if there was no King George. The darkness around us is your call to greatness.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much. I sort of lied. I have one more that I want to ask if you're okay with that. Because you said about, this is a war with the pen. It's a war of ideas. And I personally very much believe that we are in a war. I actually think that, it's every kind of war except for kinetic. It's, psychological warfare. It's been biological warfare, economic warfare. It's pretty much every type except for, we could even argue cyber warfare, but except for kinetic. And I'm curious if you think that I know there are a lot of people who are concerned that it will get to that stage. Do you think that it will, or do you think that we can win this war, with ideas and with the pen?
I firmly believe the Constitution will be saved. I believe this is a battle of light and dark, and we know who wins.
Right. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. All right. Awesome. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm so grateful to you. So yeah, we will put all your links and, definitely have everybody who wants to come support you. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. God bless you.